It will contribute immensely to people who most of the times are vilified for their mistakes more than what they have contributed to society.
Instead of focusing on the things we are getting wrong, why not we focus on the things we are getting it right? And then why not we build up on that?
Gratitude is more than being thankful. To have gratitude for something means that I've sat down, I've evaluated things. I've come to the conclusion that this is good.
I think the gratitude initiative will help to work in that way. So make a balance in your interpretation of the reality of the life.
Really expressing gratitude doesn't mean we're ignoring the injustice and racism, and we're not saying Britain is a perfect country, or gratitude Pollyannism, where you completely blind of the negative and just be naively positive. It is theologically as well as socially informed decision to celebrate the positive before we tackle the negative. So that is kind of the perspective we are taking.
This is something that we need in our society, in our family even. There's not much communication going on, but when we become more appreciative, I think there will be a wonderful atmosphere that will be created through this initiative.
Even though this is a very rich country, there is that lack of contentment.
I thought, that sounds good, but I'm not sure how it's going to happen. But the more I heard about it, the stronger conviction I had in my heart.
I've watched the whole vision evolve. It's made sense. It's gone from a seed to a tree. And what really got my attention when he shared that it was to promote a culture of gratitude and appreciation in our society. And I thought, that's it. For me, this initiative will become that bridge. We're all expecting people to show appreciation to us, but it has to start from someone.
At the moment, there is a standoff between the host nation and the migrant community. People who have extreme agenda is taking advantage of that standoff. Shall we just put aside our pride and lead the way in expressing gratitude? That is what the Gratitude Initiative is doing.
Everybody rises up like cream to the surface when somebody appreciates them. A smile comes on their face and suddenly changes negative thoughts into very positive ones.
First of all, it provides an alternative narrative to the toxic rhetoric we have got in this country.
In appreciating you, I'm putting a value. I'm recognizing that you're not all bad. There's something good inside of you. And so will that make us more productive to work more as a team? I think yes.
A heart of gratitude helps you to be more open to others.
I think the dream of this is that we can one day become a society that is so united, where color, gender, background will no longer become a problem.
Will it solve all of our problems? I wish. No. But personally, internally, psychologically, for individuals, yes.
I want to see gratitude being practiced in our localities, in our communities.
As a people who accept our diversity and understanding the fact that our strength comes also out of our diversity.
Maybe that's what Britain needs. The experience of people from all parts of the world. Can you imagine what that means? The sum total of all of that energy, all of that wisdom, all of that knowledge, all of that understanding, all of the cultural practices that are good that others bring into our society here. Hey, watch out for a better Britain after the Gratitude Initiative. Well, tonight's been so good because it's beautiful to just get a bunch of strangers together, and then in a few minutes it feels like we've known each other for so long.
So we've had a great time here tonight. This is the second time we've done this event. The breadth of people here tonight, the diversity of people, just the level of conversations that people have been having, the buzz has been, tangible.
Good that we of the front line, as I'm being a road sweeper, that we really acknowledge what work we do.
Gratitude is the way to go. It's a blessing, it's a culture. If we spread the culture, we will have a better society in the future.
Actually, I want to see our community care for each other more. I think from gratitude comes caring.
This kind of event not only highlights the work that they're doing, but it's also a way for us to say thank you, because we really do appreciate the work that these organisations do.
I think tonight has been really insightful on what we should be grateful for.
It has been really amazing and very interesting, and I'm so grateful to be here.
I think I'll take home from tonight the importance of gratitude, that actually it's more than just saying thank you to somebody, it's about a change of mindset. That if we all begin with a place of being grateful for what we have, grateful for our society, then it begins the conversation on a very different level. We can really begin to look at how we make a difference in the world around us.
You think about gratitude, it's a very simple concept, but what we saw today in the table discussion is that when people grapple with the idea, Thanksgiving leaves you unchanged, but gratitude doesn't, it changes you. My name is Germa Bisho, originally from Ethiopia. I know you will find it difficult to remember my name, so I'll tell you what it means. It means majesty, so you can say Your Highness when you see me later. We are absolutely delighted that you have come to the second Gratitude Initiative dinner in Islington. We felt that there are so many platforms where we demand the betterment of our services. And even criticize and kind of give positive criticism. But at the same time, we feel that it is very important to have another platform where we celebrate and express our gratitude to the services that we have been receiving from the public sector as well as voluntary sectors who are doing amazing job in Islington. And if you take a problem-oriented approach to the development of our communities, starting with the problems, we only enhance a blame culture. pointing the fingers to those responsible. And that blinds us from recognizing and growing the strength of our communities. The concept of gratitude can, on the other hand, shows us that community is built by celebrating our strengths and together telling the story so much that those strengths become normal for us. They become the formative narrative that energizes us to engage with our problems in a constructive manner. So to be grateful is to pause from the activity of life, to consider the good around us, and give its due recognition and acknowledgement. In the process, we transform our perspective, our conversation, and our community changes. So today we wanted to appreciate and celebrate you, your commitment, your consistency, your hard work, your availability, and your compassion. For being there in the time of our need. We feel that you are the strength as well as the jewel of our community. Between you all, you inspire, you educate, you rescue, you give comfort, you serve, you provide, you lead, you counsel, you intervene, you represent, you defend, and are a voice for the voiceless. So you do all this at times risking your own life and well-being. Thank you for your readiness to help. Thank you for your willingness to take a risk to save others in the face of danger. Thank you for your hard work and availability. Thank you for doing your work with a sense of duty and commitment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please give a round of applause to the organizations who are here today.
Welcome to this launch event from the Gratitude Initiative, which I was due to have hosted at the House of Lords here behind me, where I've had the pleasure of hosting other Gratitude Initiative gatherings. The restrictions imposed to limit the spread of COVID-19 have meant that no events other than the very necessary legislative business and support to the operation of Parliament is currently permitted during this second lockdown. Hence, we are online today. Nevertheless, with much joy, I welcome you to this launch, which is well supported and will include many more messages of encouragement. It has been my great pleasure to know Pastor Germa Bishau of the Ethiopian Fellowship Church and to learn of his vision for a culture of gratitude in Britain. I'm grateful for his friendship and inspired by the focus and theological reflection Germa has encouraged us to consider as a director of the Gratitude Initiative. There is evidence that those who focus on gratitude enjoy a more positive outlook, better health and relationships than might otherwise be the case. Indeed, as Christians, we give thanks to God for all He has given us, for His loving purposes fulfilled in the birth, death and resurrection of His Son, Jesus Christ. It matters then, as those who are children of a God who gives so abundantly and generously, that we attend to the blessings that he gives us day by day. I have found and been humbled as I go around the churches and parishes of Southwark Diocese, where I serve as bishop, to meet people from around the world who express precisely this sort of gratitude and who give thanks out of joy and also give thanks out of hardship, and begin conversation unfailingly with the words, "I thank my God," however great the challenges they might be facing. London is a truly global city of many cultures and national heritages, and also of different faiths, where we long for peace and goodwill among all people. In our schools alone, our school children speak over 300 languages, and every single one of them calls this great metropolis home. Just as Jesus has made his home with and in us, so too must we make homes in our hearts for one another, as we thank God for each other. Gratitude in times of plenty and in times of hardship is the crucible in which Christian character and discipleship is formed. I am truly humbled by the clarity and radical nature of the Gratitude Initiative for us to live out a life of gratitude in the service of others as the way to understand the overpowering grace of God. This matters in every time and every place, but it is especially important as our country grapples with a pandemic which has issued in much suffering and hardship and isolation and fear, and is also in transition in its relations with the rest of the world, and in particular with many other European nations. This, I find, feeds into our prayers, and I am profoundly moved by that of a former United Nations Secretary General, Dag Hammarskjöld. For all that has been, thanks. For all that will be, yes. These words take us to the heart of what it means to be full of gratitude for past blessings and past struggles, acknowledging injustices and inequalities that need radical transformation, yet remaining full of hope for a better tomorrow. I offer you, my friends, this reflection in words from the first chapter of St. Paul's letter to the Colossians. In our prayers for you, we always thank God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, for we have heard of your faith in Christ Jesus and of the love that you have for all the saints, because of the hope laid up for you in heaven. You have heard of this hope before in the word of the truth, the gospel. This was a passage that came strongly to mind when I thought of this launch event, because amongst the daily store of things we should notice and give thanks for is the faith, hope and love we have in Jesus Christ, and all God's loving purposes fulfilled in him, and the Christ in you and me. It is my privilege daily to draw much encouragement from the faith of Christians in South London and East Surrey. I daily give thanks for the light which shines so brightly in them, which is the light of Christ. So I'm deeply moved by the words St. Paul says towards the conclusion of that first chapter in verse 27. God chose to make known how great among you are the riches of the glory of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. As we then turn our hearts in gratitude to the God whom we serve, and in whom we live and move and have our being, we pray for the healing of the many fractures of our society, holding fast to that hope of glory, which is Christ in us. Amen, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Bishop Christopher, for welcoming us and hosting so many gratitude events at the House of Lords. We're so grateful. It's a great pleasure for the Trustee Board to see Gratitude Initiative being launched today. We've been journeying with Gratitude Initiative over the last 4 years. I first heard about it when I met Dr. Gurma Bishore, and I was blown away by it. He is the founder of it and the leader of it. And we've witnessed how the concept of gratitude has impacted community, relationships, and individual perspectives since that time. What a joy to be here with you today to celebrate this launch. So thank you so much for joining us from all over the nation. We have guests from across the UK, from Europe and America, and we'd love to acknowledge a few leaders and supporters of the Gratitude Initiative. We're delighted to have leaders from the Mercers Company, our supporters. We're so grateful for their continuous support and generosity. From the UK, we have Steve and Anne Clifford, Bishop Dr. Derek Webley. He's the National Secretary of the New Testament Church of God. We're welcoming Bishop Peter Hill, Bishop of Barking. And we have Jeremy Knowles from All Churches Trust, and the Dean and leadership team of St. Paul's Cathedral. From the United States, Alan Bart, who's Vice President and Global Catalyst of the Redeemer City to City. And Dr. Ellen Marmon from Asbury Theological Seminary, welcome. And there are so many more with us today. We welcome all of you. Thank you for being with us. We'd also like to acknowledge our partner organisation, World Vision, which celebrates its 70th year anniversary today. And we want to say a big thank you for the wonderful work they're doing throughout the world, and particularly at this difficult time. So now let me invite Mark, the CEO of World Vision, to speak a few words to us.
The coronavirus pandemic is accelerating at dramatic speed.
Protective gear is running low.
What a privilege it is for us here at World Vision to join with the Gratitude Initiative in serving God together. A lot of people have asked me about this partnership and said, what is it that World Vision can be grateful for in this hurting world, this broken, fallen world, where so many people live in situations and circumstances of injustice, of poverty, of deprivation, so far short of God's plan for life in all its fullness. I start by telling them the story of Bob Pierce and how when he gave his last $5 to a very poor Chinese girl, he not only gave, but he received. He received an insight, a spiritual revelation from God into God's compassionate heart. And this has been translated into a prayer. It goes like this: let my heart be broken by the things that break the heart of God. And out of that broken heart, World Vision was founded. Over the last 70 years, the Holy Spirit has prompted literally millions of people to pray that same prayer. And as they've prayed it, God has answered powerfully. World Vision has become a global movement, being prepared to go to places other people won't, to the world's hardest places, toughest places to be a child, and to go there as God's hands and God's feet. And after 70 years, we're continuing to pray that same prayer as we work together with communities, with churches, with partners, with governments to create opportunities for better futures for the most vulnerable children in some of the toughest places in the world to enjoy life in all its fullness. So what inspires our gratitude? First and foremost, it is for that Spirit-led insight, that glimpse of God's compassionate heart. Secondly, we're so grateful for the opportunity, the privilege that God's given us of being part of his mission to bring life in all its fullness into this world. And thirdly, we're incredibly grateful for God's provision and God's guidance over the last 70 years, and God's care and protection for World Vision, as well as for his call. So what are my aspirations for the years to come? First and foremost, they're a prayer. They're a prayer that we can see a world come into being where every child is free from fear, free from violence, where there is hope, there is joy, there is justice, where children can live the life that God meant them to live. And then secondly, I pray that we can continue to work together with organisations like Gratitude, so that together we can bring about God's purposes through the power of his Spirit, so that every child will know what it is to live life in all its fullness. So a lot of people are asking, how can we pray for World Vision at this time? And I guess there are three things that we'd like you to pray for. Firstly, in these very troubled times in which we live, we'd ask that you enable us to retain that spirit of gratitude, recognising all that God has done and is doing for World Vision and through World Vision. Secondly, we'd ask that you enable us to fulfil our mission in this time of epidemic, and as we work in the world's most vulnerable communities, that we can best protect those least able to care for themselves. And thirdly, we'd ask for your prayers for our supporters and our church partners at this time, that we will remain close to God, that we'll allow our hearts to continue to beat in tune with God's heart, even when that means our hearts get broken. So Rick and all my friends, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to partner with you today in this very special day, to express our gratitude to God for all that he has done for and through World Vision over the last 70 years. And I'm absolutely convinced that if we retain this spirit of gratitude, of this recognition of our dependency on God, then together we can transform communities and we can bring life in all its fullness to the world's most vulnerable children and their families and communities in which they live. So thank you once again, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Mark, from World Vision. And now I'm going to hand over to Dr. Germa Bishaw, the founder and leader of Gratitude Initiative, and also Andy Frost, the leader of Share Jesus International. They're going to be hosting tonight, and so you'll find they're a great double act. Germa and Andy, over to you.
Thank you so much, Bishop Rick, and thank you, World Vision. It is great to be here tonight for the launch of the Gratitude Initiative. Germa, the night is here.
I tell you, I'm super excited.
It's been a long journey, and we haven't got time for the whole story tonight, but we have a packed programme, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have various speakers, particularly our main speakers are Miroslav Wolf from the US, and we do have two psychology lecturers from two universities talking about gratitude from a psychological perspective. And we do have Reverend Dr. Joel Edwards with us as well. So it is amazing time.
So tonight's going to be so thought-provoking. It's a chance for you to engage with this big issue of gratitude, but we'd love you to join in a conversation online too, using the hashtag #LiveLaunch2020 or the Gratitude Initiative handlebars, which you'll see on the screen right now. You can engage in an online conversation. But more than just having speakers, we're having this international flavour with music as well, aren't we?
That's right. We do have choir from Namibia. They're joining us from Namibia. We have a South Asian choir and also a Spanish solo singer with us. So get ready to dance.
So this is going to be a truly international kind of live mix-up. First of all, let's roll this tape of the choir in Namibia. Hey, Wow. You told me they were going to be good.
I told you to wear your dancing shoes.
I was, mate. You see my moves there. I was looking good, I think. You know what's really great about the Gratitude Initiative is that there's a whole movement of people behind the scenes who are help making this possible, including the trustees of the charity. Let's hear something now from those trustees.
My name is Rick Thorpe. I'm the Bishop of Islington, and I'm the chair of the Gratitude Initiative. And I've known Germa Bishop for a number of years, and it's one of my great privileges to be in this role as this initiative is beginning to build momentum. So, Celia.
Hi, I'm Celia P.J. Collins. I'm a minister of religion, and I head an organization called the Rehoboth Foundation and the Young Emerging Leaders Forum. I have a great heart to see nations transformed to look like what the kingdom ought to look like. And my life changed when I met Germa Bishop because he had a great vision and he was unrelentless in pursuing it. And I am a trustee, very honored to be a trustee, helping to shape this initiative and push it forward.
I am Harvey Kuyani. I live in Liverpool. I teach at Liverpool Hope University. I've been working with Germa for quite a while. So when the gratitude vision started to emerge, I was right there with him, and really greatly privileged to work with him to a point where we are now, that we're having this conversation.
I rolled my eyes. I'm like, you have a mountain to climb, to scale. Who thinks about these things? But then I spent some time sitting with him in an Ethiopian restaurant for a couple of hours, just hearing his heart. I think the very first thing that got to me was the concept of gratitude was a great one. The fact that the Bible has throughout as a thread the concept of thanksgiving. Oh, give thanks. Oh, give thanks. Oh, give thanks. Be ye thankful. Everything let us praise and thank him. So that's something that undergirds our spirituality, because when you recognize that God has done something for you, then you look up to him the more. So it grows faith. And then I saw this young foreign man who was convicted in every fiber of his being that we ought to be thankful as a nation. The more I heard him, and I must say, Germa was very persistent. Everything unlocked inside of me that was prophetic. I began to see differently. I began to view him differently. And the buy-in was from day one for me. He was that convincing. He must have been praying and fasting for a long time.
From the beginning, it didn't really seem like it's an idea that can connect. And even for me, I had to hear Germa speak about this several times in several contexts. Heard him preach about it. Heard him speak at a conference about it. Heard him really talk about this in several gatherings. And then finally it clicked. I realized that actually there is something here that Germa is communicating probably better than I had heard anybody communicate about gratitude so far. And he's not just communicating it as something that is out there. Is really something that's within him, and he tries as much as possible to share it with others. So listening to him a few times, I had to buy in. It made perfect sense. As Celia is saying, it makes biblical sense. It makes cultural sense, both from an African perspective and really having lived in the UK for quite some time now. It's beginning to make cultural sense even here in Britain that yes, we can't just receive without saying thanks. So not too long after we had started the journey, I joined the bandwagon and really became an evangelist for Gema and started preaching gratitude.
For me, I think the first thing that captivated me with this initiative was the power that someone who I wasn't expecting to say thank you had on me, who was saying, I want to say thank you first. And as I was thinking about Gurma's own experience as an immigrant to England, was he was saying, I want to say thank you first to this nation. And for me, to be honest, I felt deeply convicted, because I thought that actually so many immigrants have experienced so much racism, so much ostracization, rejection in the church, and so on. And he helped me see that different generations have had different experiences. But he said, actually, before any of that, he said he wanted to say thank you. And what it did was it disarmed me. It did something inside me that it was very humbling indeed, because my immediate response, what rose up inside of me, was a desire to say, no, I don't want you to say thank you. I want to say thank you to you. And I began to reflect on what was actually happening inside me as he was saying thank you to me. It cut through a kind of a gulf between us. It cut through barriers and made a way for communication, for relationship, for a deeper connection. Because when you say thank you to someone, it's an intimate thing to say. You're putting yourself in a position where you're saying, actually, I'm grateful for you and for something you've done for me. And so that position of humility, of saying thank you, the strange thing is it created in me a desire to say thank you back. And so I as I was talking to him about it, and as he was sharing the vision with me, I was experiencing something that I just wasn't expecting. And so I was reflecting with him about it as it was happening. And I just caught something where I just thought there is something here that I just wasn't expecting. And so from that point of view, I didn't really understand what was going on, but I thought there's something in this, I want to get behind it. And of course, we've talked about Gurma, sometimes, I might be explaining it to someone and I'm not very good at explaining it to them. But then when people meet Gurma and he explains it to them, it's like that he carries gratitude and the understanding of gratitude in such a depth, doesn't he, that enables him to communicate this very, very important truth that, I don't want to say, he's really, really special. I mean, he is really, really special, but there's something that God has given him that is for this time. And so, he is carrying a weight of responsibility, a weight of also giftedness to be able to communicate something which is very, very important.
I hope that as this initiative is originated from the Bible-based hospitality, this would be also the revival movement as well. So I do pray for this. Thank you.
When I first heard about the Gratitude Initiative, I was just blown away. It's so obvious that being grateful to people will disarm them and make them open to us. And for me, that's what the Gratitude Initiative is about. As a board member, my desire is that we might establish gratitude as a great British value, a value that's embodied in our culture, so that actually we go around our lives and our work being grateful to one another. The Gratitude Initiative has a load of strengths. The vision itself, this concept of being grateful, gratitude transforms our interactions with other people when that's where we start. One of the amazing strengths of the Gratitude Initiative is our leader, Dr. Germa Bishaw. He will hate me saying this and he'll probably want to edit this out so nobody ever sees it. But just in case, I want you to know, if you don't know already, that Germa is an incredible man, full of gentleness and grace and a servant heart, such humility and gentleness, but somebody with an incredible prophetic vision.
Wow, what a cracking bunch of trustees, an amazing group. Now, what's next?
So I'm delighted to introduce to you Professor Miroslav Wolf from University of Yale. He will be talking to us about gratitude from a theological perspective, and you're going to be nourished by what he's going to say.
So it's time to get a pen and paper out, take some notes. Whether you've got a faith in God or not, this stuff is gold. Check it out.
Yeah, I think a lot of experience of a lot of people, both in kind of secular, mundane realm, but also in religious and Christian realm, is that somehow this gift, whether that's the gift of creation or whether it's a gift of redemption, that it's an incredible gift that then creates on our side indebtedness. And many people feel burdened by this. And this is true of some of the people who are religious people, pious people, faithful people, but it's also true of the critics of Christian faith. Karl Marx is famous to have thought that just on account of us having been created, we are so incredibly indebted to God that we must be mere slaves of God. More recently, a colleague of mine has written a big tome, probably 1,100 pages or so, Confessions of Born-Again Pagan. He's one of the leading experts in law. And he makes an argument that there's this heavy debt of gratitude that creates resentment. And he explains the entirety of the Enlightenment atheist tradition as an attempt to overcome this resentment against God by claiming that we ourselves are God. But I think that this really fundamentally misunderstands the character of the gift. It almost treats a gift as if it were some kind of a payment, some kind of first installment that I have to return back. And it's I call it also kind of payback account of gratitude. I believe it's better and Christianly more faithful to think of the gift of God as just a gift of God on account of God's generosity. And then the proper response to such a genuine gift is to recognize it as a gift and to recognize the giver, the worthiness of the giver in praise for giving this kind of gift. So my sense is that gratitude primarily consists in this sense of recognition of the gift and in a sense of praise of the giver, recognition that something good has come to me that I haven't earned, and praise of the one who has bestowed such a gift upon me. Yeah, this is a very interesting observation of somebody, a person who you experience as a gift, but they don't even think of themselves as a gift to you. And I always interpret that as a Christian as not just a fortuitous event that has happened or fortuitous state of affairs. I interpret it as a gift from God, so that I think that these trees that I see when I look out of my window, they're not aware of it, but they are a gift to me. And so are all good creatures of God. And in that sense, I think a kind of recognition of a person as a gift is really important. And I think you're right. It changes the entire set of relationship between you and that person once you have recognized that person as a gift. Now, for me, and you do that by being grateful. For me, it's really important to think of gifts not as things or objects, even persons as such, but gift is a kind of relationship. Somebody gives something to somebody else. And gratitude is correspondingly also a form of relationship. Somebody is grateful to someone for something else, right? And so we have these both the object for which we are grateful, what am I grateful for? And we have also the person to whom we are grateful, to subject to whom we are grateful, who am I grateful to? And these two can sometimes be one and the same, and these two can sometimes fall apart or be different. When one understands gratitude as a form of a relationship that one has to another person, or to a thing that another person has given, then this whole relationship to that person and the object, it transforms, it changes. And I think if we keep that in mind, and if we think also that one of the reasons why we give gifts is not simply to kind of enrich or benefit the person, but also to create a cycle of gift giving so that that person in turn becomes a giver, and the places of gratitude and gift, they exchange and they start circulating. Now, once one thinks of gift giving and gratitude in those terms, then we realize, many people have imagined actually God's Trinitarian life to be just such gift-giving exchanges where we receive and where divine persons receive and they give. And I think what also changes is both when we think of our lives in those terms, what changes is that we both see differently persons, now very ordinary sense of that term, and also things. I always like to talk about how my father, who's now deceased, has given me a fountain pen. These are not appreciated these days so much because we don't write with hand, but it was gold-nibbed fountain pen. And it was a relatively simple one, a Pelican pen. And I can imagine now that somebody, I could go somewhere, if I had money, I could buy myself a much nicer fountain pen. And yet I would never prefer that nicer fountain pen to the one that my father gave me. Why is that? Because somehow my father is in that pen. When I have a relationship to that pen, I have a relationship to him. And if it's a gift of somebody who loves me or who I love, then I realize that this whole object becomes alive in a very different way. What was just an ordinary object becomes a sacrament of the presence of that other person. And I think gratitude recognizes this in things, that God is a giver of these things. When we are grateful, those things become alive to us in a very different way. Persons become alive to us also in a very different way. So I think that this stands toward the world, gratitude that stands toward the world, is fundamental to a flourishing life. The good leads the way, and you can see that especially in the ministry of Jesus, when Gospel of Mark summarizes the whole ministry of Jesus. At the very beginning of the Gospel, he came and he preached the good news. The good news was what the Christian faith was about, the good news of salvation that is coming, and therefore something for which we are grateful as the good news for us. It's not that there's no repentance there. It's not that there's no critique, if you want. It's there, but repentance is in the function of this good news. Because the good news is there, therefore I move from one direction of my lives and align my life in the other direction, in that which is good. And I think we also seek, we are motivated also by the good to transform our lives when we find ourselves in just ordinary situation. I think it's really important to me not to think that first thing that we need to do with the world is to critique it. First thing that we need to do is to enhance the good in the world. Good is already there. And needs to be enhanced, and more time and more effort should be spent to enhancing the good than to combating the bad. And now that brings me to the role of gratitude. And I feel that if you want to kind of think what has priority, gratitude or complaint, I would say gratitude has priority, but that's not to exclude the complaint. Why gratitude and why positive has primacy, I think is probably best illustrated for me when I think about the famous speech that Martin Luther King has made during the march to Washington. It was "I have a dream" speech. If he had a "I have a complaint" speech, I don't think too many would actually have followed him if it was simply about complaining. Now, he had a lot to complain with in that speech itself. It was march for jobs. At stakes were ability of people to satisfy their basic needs, to feed themselves and to feed their families. It was jobs and freedom. At stake was human dignity of these people. But nonetheless, he doesn't first lead with complaint. And complaint is not fundamental. Fundamental is the dream that is there. Fundamental is the good that has to be created, that has to be enhanced. And I think that points in the direction that we need, in the direction that we need two elements, just like in Jesus' proclamation, good news and repentance, so also we need gratitude and complaint. And the proper place of complaint, if it's properly executed, is essential. It's a critique. It's a way of turning from what isn't quite right, and there's going to be place for it as long as the Messiah does not come and the world doesn't become God's world as it properly ought to be. And so I see this complaint and gratitude a kind of dialectic with the primacy given to gratitude. If you want it's an addition to this dialectic of gratitude and complaint with the primacy given to gratitude. And what I would want to add is that sometimes we don't know what it is appropriate to be grateful for. Very often, what we end up being grateful if we are deeply introspective about lives are sometimes things that for which we didn't feel that we could be grateful at the time that they were happening. And retrospectively, we'll look and we say, it's not that pain that I endured, it's not that the suffering that I have undergone, it's not the persecution that was my lot. It's not that these things are good in themselves, but they have created, by the grace of God, something good, and I need to express that out of something that is not good, good has come, and I am, in a sense, grateful for that has happened. I am better off. The good has come to me. I'm better off for that having occurred. Now, I know that this is not something that a person can tell somebody else right in the middle of the suffering. Then it looks like, oh, I'm this very smug, comfortable know-it-all who is telling the other person, just be grateful for whatever it is. That obviously we cannot say, because we don't know actually how situations are, and we ought to honor and respect the pain and suffering in which people are undergoing. But at the same time, we can be open retrospectively to say, oh, I can be grateful for something that was very hard, something that was arduous, something that demanded work of me, and something that I unwillingly accepted, something that I kicked and screamed against, but nonetheless, it became a good for which I am grateful. Yeah, the Zacchaeus story is very, very fascinating, and clearly accusations have not worked against to transform Zacchaeus. And what strikes me in that story is, as in some other stories, that Jesus has eyes to see what other people do not see. I remember, same Luke's Gospel, chapter 7, right? Is the sinful woman that comes to and washes Jesus' feet. And then Jesus asks the host, who is scandalized that this sinful woman has come into his house and that Jesus is allowing her to wash his feet. The question that Jesus asks Simon is, do you see this woman? And you can say, well, of course he saw the woman, right? Because that's why he's complaining about it. But then Jesus might repeat the question, do you really see that woman, who she is? And this ability to see somebody, recognize their humanity, recognize their goodness and their movement toward good was picked up by Jesus in her case. And she was freed. I think something similar might be going on with Zacchaeus. There is a son of Abraham, he is. There's something, common humanity. You can name various other things that might be there that Jesus sees. Maybe Jesus sees also his discomfort with himself and with the chains that he has put upon himself, but he can't tear off, and needs some help, not accusatory help, but helping hand to enhance his humanity so that he can be freed, give him grace so that he can be free. And suddenly you have, by that very gift that Jesus gives him of seeing him, Zacchaeus is transformed, and he now wants to get rid of everything that he has wronged and wants to give more to those he has harmed than what otherwise might be normal for him to or equitable for him to do. So I see that gift giving and gratitude is a key dynamic in this, and as you suggested in your question, I think it can be also a dynamic in relationship as we engage with people who deeply disagree with us, or with people who themselves seem to be captive to the powers of evil, out of which they cannot release themselves, but somewhere deep down they actually long for that release. Just to summarize some of the things that we've already said, and one is I simply want to say how important it is to emphasize gratitude in our personal lives, but emphasize gratitude more broadly in the public life. Emphasize gratitude to God, as well as emphasize gratitude to one another. And for a variety of things, kind of have these eyes to see the goods for which we can be grateful. And I think that the second point that we repeatedly came to in our conversation, which it's maybe worth emphasizing, and that's this dynamic of gratitude and complaint. If we practice gratitude indiscriminately, it becomes cheap and it becomes implausible. Indeed, it becomes false, right? I can be grateful only for something that is a genuine gift. It's important to have eyes to see the good, and there's more good often than we see, and to emphasize, enhance that good, celebrate that good, be grateful for the good that it is. But there's also place for complaint. Gratitude may not stifle the complaint. Complaint, there ought to be place for it. The same is true the other way around. Complaint may not drown out gratitude. And so I see that there is this, as I said earlier, dialectical relationship, and maybe that relationship is related to the relationship between Sabbath and the work days. Now, I see Sabbath as being called not just to rest, but called not to strive. In other words, to practice contentment. Sabbath is when we celebrate what is, the good that is ours. 6 days we work, we improve, we strive, and so forth. And whatever the proportion, right proportion might be, it's important to keep in mind that both of these are present. And I think it's true in the biblical traditions that the first day of human life is Sabbath and not workday. Right? God creates on the 6th day, and then comes the Sabbath day. So the first full day for human beings, last day of God's work, and first day for humans is Sabbath, which is to say it's the day to proclaim to ourselves and to each other that the world is created by God. The set of circumstances that are there are good, and even in the fallen world that there are many such circumstances that are good, and that's celebrated. That doesn't mean that we don't work in order to make things better. It's because there are other days in the week when we do that. And so I would wish that as you promote gratitude in thinking, and in personal life and in public life, that this dynamic of gratitude and complaint is always present.
Have eyes to see the good for which we can be grateful. That is brilliant stuff. Gurma, can you give me an example of what this looks like in practice?
Yeah. You know, you're absolutely right for saying that, particularly when you talk about the primacy of good, the good. It's so let me tell you a story. I think it was 2018 in summer. It was summer one evening. I was at the West End and just waiting for my friend. It was very late, and I met this couple, a very posh English couple, and they were waiting for a pickup, and I was waiting for my friend, and so there was other people passing by, and they were very loud, and they made some kind of joke that provoked our conversation. So the lady started talking to me, and after a while, she said she's ashamed of her country, Britain. And she said she started to list why she felt ashamed, and she said, look at the immigration law, look at the racism, look at Brexit, look at the hate crime that was happening, and she listed quite a lot of problems that we encounter in Britain, and obviously she was expecting me to add some more. So I said to her, I just turned and I said, I'm sorry, I don't agree with you. And she said, what do you mean you don't agree with me? And I said, it's because Britain is not just that. There are qualities in this country. Sometimes we take it as granted. And I listed some of the qualities that I've experienced and have seen in this country. And she just couldn't believe that this African man could actually contradict to her about her own country and of her own perspective of her country. And and then she said to me, I'm sorry for asking, but where are you from? How can you say this? And I said to her, I'm from Ethiopia, and I came to Britain in 1990 when Ethiopia was in civil war with Eritrea. And as a young man, expecting to meet no one at the airport, and I came with $250 in my pocket.
Wow.
So I was received, I was given a place to live, and money to live by, opportunity to work and to study. And now, when I talk about gratitude, so what I am today is by the grace of God and by the generosity of the British people. And I said, and I said to her, so when I talk about gratitude, when I talk about Britain, I cannot start from the negative. I start from what's positive. And she just started crying.
Wow.
And she said, no. We are the one who are grateful. Where would Britain be without the migrant community? Where would the NHS be without the migrant community? Where would this be? We are the one. And I said, no, I am the one grateful. She said, no, we are the.
Wow.
And the atmosphere that was created was so good. We didn't want to go away. And if it was in Africa, I would have hugged her, but we are parted by a very warm handshake. So the primacy of the good changes the conversation, and it doesn't mean that there's no place for complaint, but the way you approach it will be different.
That is so simple and yet so profound.
Absolutely.
Really, really helpful there. A great story to tell as well.
Let's see music now.
More music? Let's do it. That was beautiful from Debbie, and I love this international flavour we've got this evening. What's next, Goma?
Well, we have Reverend Dr. Joel Edwards with us, and we asked him what gratitude means to him and how he sees gratitude initiative impacting society.
Great, look forward to it.
Gratitude is just such an incredibly important idea. It doesn't spell subservience or inferiority. It doesn't sound like somebody who is so ingratiated to another person. It feels like two adults, one recognizing their own value, and the other recognizing the value of another person, and that in that space called gratitude, two individuals are negotiating mutual respect and they're negotiating mutuality. I'm grateful to you either for an opportunity you've given me, or I'm grateful to you for allowing me into your life to contribute to your life, and vice versa. So I think it's a really great kind of contractual concept. Gratitude feels to me to be like an edifice being built between consenting adults who come from different political and cultural and historic perspectives. But together, gratitude is an edifice being built in which very different people with very different life stories can come inside and share mutual respect, where we can put down hostilities without naivety, where we can discuss tough issues without pretending that there is no work to be done, and where we can, as you know, the initiative has done in places like Islington, demonstrate the power of being grateful to someone who has served you in public spheres, and celebrate contributions, valid contributions, which might otherwise have gone unnoticed. So I see gratitude not as a very conceptual idea out there somewhere, but actually as a very powerful edifice for mutual respect between very different kinds of people. You've demonstrated in some of the projects you've led that this really can be done, and it starts with, you know, the concept of respect. You don't exchange gratitude if you don't respect someone, really. And I think what this does is give us a different philosophical and relational construct, architecture for public policy, for building neighborhoods, for building community relationships across people of different faiths or none, for grappling with issues of racism and sexism and diversity, for approaching the other with respect, either in a political context or a social context, or indeed a family context. I'd love to see it build on some of the fine work which has already been done. How do we inculcate cultures of gratitude for public servants? We saw that demonstrated during COVID as we, you know, all stepped outside our front doors to applaud National Health Service workers for a number of weeks, and that drew communities together. I'd like to see us build on that kind of ethos, so that in the space we call gratitude, we are starting from that place of mutual respect to talk about really tough issues. And I think the first thing which needs to happen is for people to get inside their head and heart that when we talk about the Gratitude Initiative, we aren't talking about Black and Asian folks, people of color, swooning in front of our political masters at the Home Office and saying, thank you, thank you, thank you for allowing me to come to the United Kingdom. That would be a total travesty of the concept. We are not talking about people who are on lower socioeconomic status, speaking up to the high and mighty and saying, please give me a job because I'm so grateful. No, we're talking about people of mutual respect, people of mutual value and worth, looking at community relations. It's a different way, I think, of talking about community relationships. It's a different way of talking about why it is that we should not stone ambulance workers as they come to help someone in our community, or throw bricks at the fire service if they come to put out a fire. It's another way of governments exercising their role and responsibility with humility to listen to the migrant, to listen to people of color, to listen to people who they serve in community, and to have that sense of gratitude that, yeah, politicians, public servants cannot run Britain without the hard work, initiative, creativity, and skills of those whom they lead. And I think in this edifice, we have a space to explore a different attitude as we talk and work together. So I think the first thing is that this concept has to get ingrained in people's minds, infiltrate the way we do policy, and infiltrate the way we do public relationships and private relationships as well. From a Christian perspective, it's the Apostle Paul, who, he is your alpha Christian theologian, philosopher, thinker, activist, who had this amazing habit of saying to the people he served in different parts of the Roman Empire, I always give God thanks for you. I mean, I think he exemplified that. Gratitude was the rail on which Paul conducted his relationship with those whom he served. And I think in this kaleidoscope of cultural experiences, which will be a part of that, because I think this will give us a showcase, bringing together a philosophical, a theological, an academic framework for a new way of being people together. And what's so profound about that, and so wise in what you've done in that list of invitees and guests and contributors, is that this isn't a flaky idea which just sort of come off the wall somewhere, or somebody woke up in a cold sweat having had a really interesting dream and come up with this thing called gratitude. Through your own academic work, through others who will come to be a part of that, we're demonstrating that this is a thought through idea which has intellectual and philosophical and political credibility. But I think we'll also be saying, well, in this space, all are welcomed, and all of us come into this framework, this assembly, in order to talk about difficult things and celebrate achievements and try to imagine a future together in the United Kingdom, which isn't a theoretical one. And as I've said repeatedly, not one born of them and us, the high and the low, the great and the not so good, but actually individuals, British citizens and friends coming together to occupy a very unique space in which we try to imagine a better Britain.
Joe was just absolutely amazing. It's almost reinforcing what Miroslav Volf was saying, that gratitude doesn't eradicate complaint. And it's just absolutely amazing.
It's brilliant. And I think this message is so apt for this present time we're in. There's so much division in our nation. And to have this idea of gratitude being the kind of foundation is so important. And what I love about what you're doing here, Goma, you're trying to create a culture nationally of gratitude, but you're earthing it locally.
That's right.
And it's a great story now what you've been doing in Islington. So let's hear what's been going on in North London.
You are the steering committee of Islington for Gratitude. What convinced you to be part of the Islington Gratitude Steering Committee?
You did. You. We had no choice. Arms were twisted.
We have had an opportunity to organize a dinner for public sector and voluntary sector workers, and we engaged with them, and before and on the day and after. So how do you think gratitude impacted the life and work of the participants on those dinner, on those occasions, and your interaction?
Well, I know from speaking to one of the attendees who's works as a street cleaner, and he was so touched to have just been recognised and to have been served and to have had a chance to kind of share his story. It was the first time that ever happened to him, and his boss could come along, and his boss was really pleased, and I think it was just a recognition that for him, we appreciate all the work that he does and that people in his profession do.
I was intrigued by the police, because I saw the emails as well, right? So they were told to come. This is part of your job. You're now going, and you wear uniform. You're actually there to represent us. But then seeing them on the night, they really embraced it, engaged with it. They were affected by it. You could see that shift from this is something I need to do because it's my work to a wow, this actually does make a difference. And that was neat.
I think it was also quite educative, so that people could form networks. You know, you bring all these different service providers and people working in the community into one room, around tables, getting to talk, and it was interesting being involved in conversations because people were suddenly realising where they might be able to work together, or you know that they were working on actually very similar projects and you could share resources or thinking. So I actually think it was quite good for sort of local community cohesion as well and networking.
Yes, there are very few events like that where different organisations and public services have the opportunity to come together.
Without an agenda as well. That's what I loved about it. And so many people, particularly on the council as well, speaking to colleagues, like, oh, okay, you know, love to come along. What's the agenda? What do they want? It's like, no, nothing. Like, well, they must want some funding or something. Like, no, genuinely nothing. Like, well, am I there to talk or do? And they're like, no, they just want to say thanks for the work. And that took a while. People are like, really?
I think that the surprise that we are expressing, that we noticed in the participants, is backing up what we were saying about gratitude as a cultural change.
And wanting to do something with it in the future.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yes, it wasn't just the experience on the night that really touched people. Yes, it did powerfully, as we were saying, but they wanted to do something with it.
Now that is incredible to hear from those guys, and what I love, we've actually had some letters back from different groups in Islington sharing how this experience has really helped them. We've got a letter here from the Manor Society Homeless Charity who write this: "Our project working with homeless and marginalised people is not glamorous, and we do not generally seek publicity because many of our clients prefer to be anonymous. So it was heartening that the Gratitude Initiative has noticed us and shown appreciation."
That's incredible.
It's good, isn't it? And this one here has come from the London Ambulance, who were invited along to the evening too. And they write this: "It's not often that we are recognised for the work we do, and your award meant so much to each and every one of us, as it shows us that the public are grateful and do care for the role we play within the community. The staff who attended the ceremony would like to thank you all personally for a lovely evening and the respect and courtesy they were all shown, and all had a very enjoyable night too."
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear.
It's brilliant. So what you're doing locally is now becoming a national thing too.
That's right. So to help us kind of develop nationally, we do have a national development team. So let's hear from them.
I joined the National Development Team quite simply because I've been so inspired by what I've seen so far. I attended a Gratitude Initiative dinner here in London, and I began to see what's possible just meeting people in the room from such diverse parts of the community. And when communities come with thankful hearts together in a room, you really begin to see the power and potential of gratitude. And I have to say, I really don't think I've seen anything quite like this as an idea in my lifetime. Just think what could happen if this single idea of gratitude could capture the imaginations of people up and down the UK. Well, I think the strength is its inability to help us in our longing to change the world. We live in a world that's broken, fragmented societies, and gratitude provides both a framework for reconciliation and a foundation for harmonious relationships. The strength of the initiative is that it's built on a compelling idea. The Roman philosopher Cicero, I don't know much about Roman philosophy, but he said a thankful heart is not only the greatest virtue, but the parent of all other virtues. So my hope for the Gratitude Initiative is that as we foster and encourage a culture of thankfulness, we might begin to change hearts and minds. We as individuals and as families might find strength for our today, a resilience for our tomorrows. And by remembering the goodness of others to us now and in our past, we might find life.
There's something about gratitude, isn't there? It warms the heart, breaks down barriers, and draws people together. And that's very much at the heart of the Gratitude Initiative, that we would see these things spill over into individual lives and communities across the UK.
I wanted to join the National Development Board for Gratitude because in society today we're seeing fragmentation, and when you're grateful, you're more generous. And so this programme of promoting gratitude is so important in today's society. So often we're so ready to complain, we put in complaints at restaurants, at businesses, but when we've truly received a great service, whether it's from a business, a church, an individual, actually it's really important that we recognise that and give praise for that and give thanks for that. And so by promoting gratitude, we're helping transform a society into a more grateful nation.
We live in a nation where often we are talking about what we can receive or take. But gratitude is a different way of seeing the world. It's a recognition that first of all we have each already been blessed and we can be thankful for what God has given us. It's about being thankful in our communities and thankful to those around us for the difference they make in modern day society. I love the vision of the Gratitude Initiative because for me it's about changing something of the story in this nation. It's about looking out for how we can thank others, how we can build bridges, how together we can look forward at building society in a new way by starting with a place of thankfulness. Many people forecast difficult and challenging times ahead for the UK. More division. I know that might be true on one level. I believe the Gratitude Initiative can make a difference in bringing together diverse communities to start a new conversation, being thankful for what each other's done, and being grateful for this nation's story so far, and looking ahead for how each of us can play a part in creating a new society and a new way of doing things.
There is good idea, there is God idea. Good idea, you can tell about people about good ideas, persuade them, convince them, and bring them to your side. But good idea, even if you lack the capacity, the persuasive capacity to convince people, even if you don't have the data to convince people, even if you cannot substantiate your claim with evidence, but there is something that tells you inside you that this is true. This is exactly what happened when I was discussing with Reverend Dr. Girma Bishaw at the early stage of the Gratitude Initiative. He told me about his vision, and I heard him, and I began to ask him critical questions for which he never had the answers. So when he failed to convince me, I thought he would drop this silly idea of gratitude. But instead, I saw in his face sadness, and the penny dropped. It was a vision. It was a God idea. It was more than a good idea. He may not be able to defend it at that time, but he can defend it now. Gratitude is more than a good idea. It is a good idea.
So this idea of gratitude isn't an English thing, is it?
No.
And it isn't just an Ethiopian thing, is it?
Not at all.
It really is a global phenomenon. So
absolutely, absolutely. You find it in every religion, in every language, in every country, in every culture, and it's a very common for all humanity.
And what's brilliant is you've got different people from different nations sharing about how gratitude is expressed in their culture.
That's right. So we have, we'll be hearing from a Japanese perspective and Latin American perspective, and Reverend Celia will be sharing with us from the Western African perspective as well.
Well, let's roll the tape.
I believe one of the ways of the Latinos community to practice gratitude is by expressing our love, our embrace, and also our hospitality to others. And I think also in the Spanish culture, Spanish for thank you is gracias, and that comes from the word gracia, which is grace. So it's almost like the plural of grace. We're saying, let grace be multiplied to you, let favor come upon you as you say thank you. And we know gratitude obviously is more than saying thank you; it's also in our actions, and we're really giving favor to someone. We're appreciating and we're responding with that favor. And I think the Gratitude Initiative launch coming now is really so important. It's wonderful because I think we have, being in this lockdown situation that we've all experienced, I think we actually value life more, we value people more, we value social contact more. And I believe the timing of this launch now is actually something that's going to benefit the Gratitude Initiative.
When we give thanks in our home from the smallest things to the biggest thing, allow an atmosphere of gratitude, love, and forgiveness fill the home. And we believe what we practice at home will then be practiced in the school, in the university, in the workplace, and the nation.
We Japanese often say thank you to each other, which shows how much we care for each other. Recognize and giving thanks to the person is becoming more important in our current challenging situation. So there are people who may feel easily isolated from others or who may feel worthless. Showing our gratitude and respect will help them respect themselves. Yeah, I think I will have built good community relations, even though there are many divisions caused by differences of the culture, gender, tradition, class, and ethnicity. How will you do this? Because I believe there is a power in love and gratitude, which breaks down any barrier of division and helps bind us together.
We, as a culture, we celebrate all the time. And I remember when I was a child, when my grandparents, my siblings used to do things just to be joyful and be thankful. They used to go through each house of the neighbors, invite them to their house, just to say thank you for being there. Thank you for being our neighbors. So I grew up with that sense, especially parties. Latin American culture is a very joyful culture. We celebrate for everything. So parties is a big deal for us. And I think being joyful is part of our celebration in gratitude, as I say, for every single thing that we have.
Gratitude has to be a way of life, and in most West African culture, it is exactly that, part of the culture. It is part of how society lives, part of what feeds the community spirit, which has long sustained our societies. I never ever cease to be amazed at the number of expressions of thank you for just even one tribe in Nigeria, Yoruba tribe. You know, Eshe pupo, Eshe gon, more. And that means I know how to be grateful. Modupe ola olua. I am thankful for the blessings of God. Ekushe. I could go on and on and on. All varying expressions to thank you and appreciate. When a community finds so many different ways of saying thank you, so many expressions of gratitude and appreciation, you know that these form the pillars of that society.
For me, the gratitude culture is very, very strong in South Asian culture. It might be slightly invisible compared to those physical elements. But a big part, I think, is just when I think of gratitude in South Asian culture, I think of the gratitude that we have towards our parents, our grandparents, our communities, our extended families, The other thing I would say is hospitality. Hospitality is huge in South Asian culture. It's a way to recognize people, to honor them, to invite them into your house, to share a meal together. And for me, that's a real way of just saying that we honor you, we want to appreciate you, we're grateful for you existing. And so that's a very practical way how South Asians would really carry out this culture of gratitude.
It's amazing to hear how gratitude is a part of almost every single culture. Actually, it's impacted not only different cultures, but also different institutions, even the business world.
That's right. That is what is happening in America as well as in different countries. We have Star Dargin from the US. She have been working with business sector, trying to promote a gratitude culture to increase their productivity. And she wrote recently a book called Leading with Gratitude, the most absolutely amazing book. And she's just an amazing speaker. So let's hear Star.
Gratitude. Gratitude changes everything. It's transformational. Gratitude is personally healing. It empowers you to be more authentically and confidently you. Gratitude helps us develop a deep sense of trust in ourselves and handle those unthinkable forces in the world right now and forever that are constantly changing and are chaotic and complex. Gratitude opens our eyes to the reality and gives us practical actions and ways so we can move forward in a positive way as opposed to a negative way. So gratitude is the answer to the problem. So what's the problem, you ask? That is the question. So Gurma, first of all, thank you for approaching me and asking me to contribute to the Gratitude Initiative. I am so honored. If I spark just one gratitude flame, inspire one person, one group, one business to build a stronger gratitude muscle, I'm grateful. I'm good. So what is the problem? There are so many problems in the world right now. Big ones, little ones, personal ones, pink ones, purple ones, all shapes and sizes. Take your pick of the problem. And gratitude is the answer. Or at least the starting point, the entry point to handling these personal problems, business problems, world problems. So why? Why am I convinced that gratitude's the answer? Why? Two reasons. History and science. We know gratitude works because it's been around thousands of years. It's probably been around as long as humans have. Every major religion has incorporated into it some form of appreciation or gratitude. Judaism says that true gratitude is when you acknowledge the blessings that are part of your everyday life. It's woven into 1,000 years of Jewish thought, the idea that you must take time to recognize what you have now and today with rituals that make a fulfilled life. So if you lose your job, you still have your health. If you lose your health, you still have your family. If you lose your you're still breathing. We wake up being grateful for the plumbing, the toilet, waking up. Always something to be grateful for, and it's part of everyday life. In Christianity, a believer is grateful to God. We pray to God all the time for having taken the burden of the believer's sins. This gratitude, this thankfulness is advocated by civil people. Isn't it what we want right now in the world? Civil people to solve problems peacefully? Wouldn't that be great? So the second reason, in addition to religion and history of humankind, we know that gratitude is the solution to the problem is science. How do we know science works? Again, I'm not a scientist, but I did start my career as an engineer who worked closely with scientists. And I wasn't a very good engineer, but I was really good at translating and paraphrasing science and technology and research to make it into something useful and meaningful solutions. I love studying science and technology. And what I love even more about it, when it helps us as human beings, I love being a practitioner, making things real and meaningful. That's how I approach gratitude is. So here's my simplified way to explain from a scientific point of view why gratitude is the solution. So when I started studying gratitude in detail, because of the personal problems I was having in my life, I pulled hundreds of scientific research studies from the Boston University Online Library, where I used to teach leadership and communication for project managers. So what I noticed about gratitude is that the research studies fell into two categories: social science and neuroscience. The social science ones were really interesting, I thought, and fun to read. The bottom line of the social science ones were, if you did this, then this happens. So here's a quick story about the social science. So if there's two groups of people, one group of people, and they're both going to play board games, okay? You give people money. It's a study, right? So this group of people, you give a bunch of money and say, go play the game, try to win. The second group of people, you give them money and say, go play the game, try to win, and you show them gratitude. We're so grateful you're here. We're so grateful you took time. Has to be authentic gratitude. We're so grateful you're willing to try this experiment. And you just praise them with authentic gratitude. Grateful group, not anything group, neither one way or the other. And guess which group won over and over in something like 90% of the cases? The grateful group. The grateful group. Why? Well, you could say they take more risks, they feel better, they're more open, they're more innovative, they're working together, all sorts of reasons you can get from that. That's a type of social science. Lots and lots of those out there. There's even things that say if you study social science, if you do 10 minutes of gratitude a day, you'll be happier for 30% of your day. All sorts of things like that. Goes on and on and on. Really, really great. So the second study is neuroscience. So neuroscience is more technical, more scientific, less disputable, and it's a science really in its infancy. Neuroscience says that we as humans, I love this, are nothing more than nerves. Billions of neurons are our nerves because the neurons talk to each other and they communicate, and chemicals. So we're nothing more than these electrical pulses, neurons, and chemicals, of which 99% of the chemicals are oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. Okay, so chemicals and nerves, neurons, that's all we are. And you can measure nerves and chemicals, right? As they respond to external events. So an external event could be emotional, a baby born, a parent dies. The events could be physical, someone hits you, or someone hugs you. And we can measure how our neurons and chemicals react to these events, including our own thinking. When it becomes grateful, our neurons and chemicals. There are billions of these neurons that communicate, that release these chemicals, these good chemicals. So the neurons communicate the good chemicals, and we can measure our body's physical response to being grateful. It's stronger and more open and all sorts of things. So you can actually try this yourself in a really quick experiment in your life. So here's the experiment. And if we had all these things hooked up to us and were measured, similar results would happen. So think of something that you're grateful in your life about. I am so grateful. I can go there. I'm just so grateful. And look and observe what happens to your body. When I flood my body with gratitude thoughts, my hands become open. My hands go to my heart. I breathe deeper. I talk slower. Now think about something you're really angry about. You were just angry about. Think about that. Watch your body. Watch my body. My hands naturally clench. I talk faster. My face looks different. So those are all those chemicals and everything. So we know from neuroscience that gratitude works. It floods our body with different chemicals and communicates out. Okay? And when we feel good, we're more innovative, we're more engaged. And here's the other thing that I really like about what neuroscience proves: gratitude is contagious. So if I'm grateful, it has to be authentically again, because our bodies can tell. When I'm grateful, you're grateful, we have a better chance of the people around us becoming grateful. And how can we get more of the solution? This is where the practitioner comes in and the contagious. We know from neuroscience, again, it's contagious, and you can grow your gratitude muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. We can use gratitude as an approach to build strong gratitude muscles. And we can use it as an approach. My focus is bringing more gratitude to the workplace. I focus on my business. My focus is bringing gratitude into businesses. And how can you do that in a way that's acceptable and natural and authentic and promotes and pushes the business's goals and initiatives? Okay. Some of us are naturally, because of our upbringing or whatever, more grateful for the others to start with. I teach these leaders and work with them how to really make strong gratitude muscles. And it does sort of bleed over into personal lives, or our personal lives bleeds into business. How can you do it as a leader, for your team, or for your culture? When you have a difficult challenge that you have to address in business or anywhere, start with showing what you are grateful for to be in that situation. Start with, I'm grateful for this, this, and this. Then get to the difficult and hard. It changes the whole trajectory of the conversation. It transforms where the conversation ends up. Just ask Grandma. That's one approach I teach. There are many, many more approaches that I have to teach. I have some in my book, and I have some that I've sort of developed after the book. The book's about a year old. How you can bring more gratitude to your business, either as an approach or building a strong muscle. So what I'm going to leave you with is gratitude for Grandma for asking me to share and talk about gratitude. It works to solve problems. It's building a practice, an approach. Know that gratitude is the solution. It is the starting point to problems big and small in businesses, in personal lives, in the world. And we know this because of science. Gratitude to you for showing up. Gratitude to Grandma. And a challenge. Start your next 3 conversations. Lead with gratitude. Start with saying out loud what you're grateful for before you jump into the conversation. So that's all for now. This is Star Dargan, leadingwithgratitude.net.
Wow, that is amazing to hear how gratitude is impacting the business world. But even more than that, I think we're going to hear next from some psychologists. Is that correct?
That's right. So, how gratitude helps individual well-being as well as communal well-being. And we have these 2 absolutely amazing psychologists from, one from Dr. Sirosis from Sheffield University Psychology Department. And also we do have Dr. Bono from California State University talking to us about gratitude and how actually it changes and contributes to the well-being of individuals as well as society.
Wow, let's keep taking notes.
It's surprisingly has a lot. A lot goes into its definition, but at least a lot of possibilities. But the reason is because it is sort of a complex phenomenon. You know, it can be experienced in different ways. It can be felt in different ways. So, but a good definition that I tend to go with is that it is recognizing the benefits and benefactors in our lives and feeling positively about them, about these gifts, and acting positively as a result of recognizing the meaning and value of these gifts. Everybody can go and find the research on, you know, various benefits. So, for example, just quickly to list a few psychological benefits, you know, things like anxiety and depression. We know that gratitude helps to counteract these mental health conditions, and largely because we are social animals, right? We don't function properly when we're removed from relationships, you know. And so sometimes I think in this day and age, especially where we have so much going on and so many choices and so much information, so much possibility to connect with other people quickly, and yet ironically we can be alone and not connect in a way that helps us feel like we belong. And yet that feeling like you belong is just so fundamental for humans. And so anyway, so there's a you know, a list of course, well-being advantages as well, right? So we're more satisfied with life. We have better moods, and of course, you know, one of my favorite theories, the broaden and build hypothesis, is that positive emotions, you know, they help widen our thinking and improve our decision making. They help us become more motivated, more resilient. They help us reach out and they help transform us. So very much in that spirit, gratitude, I think, is at its heart a transformational behavior because it helps us improve our relationships with others, our social relationships, which could include parents, right? I mean, you do have a relationship with parents. I mean, and I consider those social relationships as well, you know, because we can respond better. You know, we can always respond and grow, and we can always do a kindness that's outside of the obligation of you know, relationships with parents or relatives. So even those are relationships that can improve through gratitude. And it's through the improvement of our social relationships and to the building of new social relationships that we change as individuals. And so really the big picture that I wanted to get at is that gratitude really is about coherence. It is about connecting to our really understanding what makes us human and maybe contributing to humanity, right? I do believe that it's to use it, to throw out a big term, but this is a big advantage, is social integration, right? Gratitude makes us more coherent. We're more socially integrated so that the people are part of our, you know, the important people in our lives are part of our everyday moves. And, you know, so they have a subtle influence in still helping us to become better to others and to ourselves, you know. So it's virtuous in that way, being better to ourselves and to others, but it also brings a coherence, and there's a spiritual aspect to it that involves becoming more generative. And ultimately, generativity is, I think, what gratitude helps humans become more generative. You know, so it's fundamentally, I think gratitude is connected to the development of purpose. And so, you know, what are the things that matter to you? You know, we might not know as adolescents or even as young adults, right? It's taking longer than ever to establish some career identity or a professional identity, going to have to go to school for so many years now. And you might have several professional experiences that have yet to identify your purpose or grow out your purpose. So I really think it's, gratitude is about developing that purpose. And so as we start to understand new, or I guess bring in new things that we care about, and hopefully it's about, something that we want to, that's part of our values, something that we really care about and that we want to make a difference in. I think everybody has to find that, and it could be as simple as just being good parents, right? That gives purpose. For me, it's being a teacher and a researcher, so whatever it is, we each develop that purpose, and we do it through expanding our sphere of caring for others. And yeah, so I think that's why gratitude tends to, I think it becomes deeper, and it always changes and becomes more meaningful, because we are always changing and developing, a bit more nuance to our meaning. That's because that's our purpose developing.
The definition that I go by when I conduct research on gratitude is the one that most people in psychology use. And it's comprised of two main components. It's about being able to notice and then appreciate the positive in life. And one of the key things, we often think about being thankful and appreciative, and we sort of see these, types of feelings and words associated with gratitude, and certainly they are. But the necessary and critical first step before you can be grateful is you have to be able to notice the positive. So it's one thing to say you can appreciate the positive, but if you don't see things around you as being positive, if you don't notice small positive things in your life, that's going to make it very hard to be to experience gratitude and to be grateful to others. So I think that's something we often overlook, is it's about noticing first and then appreciating. My research is broadly defined is looking at the factors for risk and resilience for people's health and well-being. And obviously gratitude is one of those factors. I think one of the reasons I've looked a lot to studying gratitude in the context of chronic illness is when you live with a chronic health condition or a chronic illness, such as something like heart disease or diabetes or arthritis, a variety of other conditions that people struggle with, it puts sort of a constant stress on you. And some of the early benefits that came out from about gratitude were that it was beneficial for reducing stress. And so if you've got individuals who are in a context who are daily experiencing ups and downs due to the symptoms they experience as a result of their condition. They may be in pain, they may be fatigued, they may have limitations to the things they'd like to do because of their illness. If some of the research we were looking at and that was coming out was suggesting that people who were grateful in those conditions were faring much better than those who weren't experiencing gratitude. And when I say experiencing gratitude, I mean on a regular basis. So one way to look at gratitude is not just a state. So when someone does something nice for you, you thank them and you have a state of gratitude. You have that sort of nice warm feeling, those positive feelings, and you feel grateful. But we also talk about having a grateful mindset or having a grateful orientation. And these are people who have just developed a way of dealing with life and looking at life that allows them to more easily and readily notice and appreciate the positive. So the research we looked at was these people that had this sort of grateful mindset. And what we found, one of the first studies that we did looking at this over time was two different chronic health conditions, arthritis and inflammatory bowel disease. And we found in both of those illness groups, individuals who had a more grateful mindset 6 months later had lower levels of depression and better overall well-being. And so you might go, okay, there's lots of other factors that could contribute to depression and well-being. It's not just about gratitude. So we actually tested a very rigorous model where we controlled for Their depression at time one, other stressors, fatigue, illness variables. I mean, we threw pretty much everything into that model that we could have. And I remember at the time that we were running the models, I thought, oh, this is just going to wipe out any effects of gratitude, because there's other factors that are explaining why we're seeing this association with gratitude and better well-being in these individuals who are struggling with their chronic health condition. And what amazed me was that nothing wiped out the effect of gratitude. It stood on its own, distinct from everything else, and was a very powerful, the amount of what we call variance, or the amount that it explained in the outcomes, was not huge, but it was stable. And when you're living with a chronic health condition, any little thing that can improve your well-being is valuable. So that's one of the I think more remarkable studies we've done that really to me just brought in to highlight the power of gratitude and what it can do, especially for people who are under such stressful conditions. So two of the things we know that make life stressful for people are not having a sense of control over things, right? So when things are unpredictable, we feel stressed. And when we experience also not just uncertainty about things. So we don't know what's going to happen. So we can't control things in the moment, but we also have difficulty, knowing where things are going. That describes people living with a chronic health condition in many instances, but it also describes our current circumstances. So I think there is very strong parallels there, and certainly it's the same sort of idea. We have to be able to notice those small things that do make a difference. If we're focused on the negative all the time, if we're focused on what's gone wrong and the uncertainty and the anxiety, that sort of takes up a lot of your energy and a lot of your focus. There's no room left really to notice anything positive. But if you're able to just pull out a few positive things, maybe some things that people have done for you, things that you've learned about yourself, perhaps by living under more difficult circumstances, or about maybe you've grown closer in your relationships to others, just anything positive at all, and really recognizing that, but also just sort of savoring that in a grateful manner, I think can make a huge difference. And it can make a big difference, not just feeling good in the moment, but it reduces your stress. It can reduce your stress. So yeah, we can say it's like coping, but it's more than that. This is sort of where a lot of the researchers on gratitude have said it's not just coping. We've tried testing, others have tried testing it. It's more than coping. It's a really incredible phenomena, I think, being grateful, because it's not explained easily by coping and other things, but we know that it has these beneficial effects. So I think definitely it's something that can be quite valuable for people right now.
Wow. I think it is time to reflect and pause.
There's been so much, amazing material this evening, really helpful to think through what gratitude looks like. I guess the challenge is, though, what does it now look like practically? And I think as an initiative, there are three things you're involved in doing. First of all, it's the idea of resourcing each of us as individuals and as corporate bodies to do something. What kind of resources are we doing?
So we really want to be an information hub for anything to do with gratitude. We want people to find on our website. And the second thing we want to do is to have a national annual summit where we invite people who have expertise on gratitude, who have done research on gratitude, to inform us so that we may have a wider understanding of gratitude and practice.
Brilliant. So the idea of resourcing, first of all. I think secondly, it's about cultivating, is that correct?
That's right. So we will be having a national celebration and also a local gratitude activities like we did in Islington. We want to see it in every borough, in every cities.
So wouldn't it be amazing that you can actually host a kind of gratitude initiative event in your own locality, similar to Islington, really celebrating the good things about your community? What a fantastic opportunity.
That's right. And also nationally.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
And the third thing, actually we're going to be campaigning for something too, aren't we?
That's right. And we are excited to campaign for an annual Gratitude Sunday for churches where they use that day to express their gratitude to God and also to identify people in the community who are contributing to the community and acknowledge and really appreciate them. And the congregation expressing their gratitude to the pastor and vice versa.
Brilliant. What I love about this is it's a fantastic vision that can really shape the UK in the years to come. And they also got some really practical things that each and every one of us can do. Do remember to sign up to the e-updates from these guys regularly, because it'll give you some practical tools of things you can do in the everyday and things you can do in your community. I think it's time for the official launch now with an opening prayer. We're going to hand back over to Bishop Rick.
So this is the moment we've all been waiting for tonight. I declare that the Gratitude Initiative is nationally and officially launched. And so now we need to pray. We need to ask God to bless this initiative, to infuse it with his presence and life. And we need to pray for Dr. Gomer Bishore too, as he leads this initiative. Let us pray. Let's spend some time now praying for the Gratitude Initiative and praying for Dr. Gomer Bishore. And let's give this over to the Lord.
1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 16 to 18. Rejoice always, pray continuously, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus.
Father of lights, in whom there is no variableness nor turning, you faithful and true God, one who keepeth covenant with generations. We thank you for Dr. Gomer Bishore. We thank you for you who take the foolish to confound the wise. We thank you for taking the ordinary man, sharing your burden with him, putting your passion in him, Father, and releasing him. We thank you for when he was weak, you were strong. When he was confused, you became his wisdom and his direction. When he didn't know what to do, you were there, God, guiding. We thank you for the favor. We thank you for your prayers that caused him from sabotaging everything you wanted to do with him. Thank you for your sustenance. Yes. Thank you for your provision. Thank you for that open heaven. Thank you for help. Thank you for the resources that you brought. Thank you for the ideas. Thank you for the manpower. You who have begun a good work, the same will do it again and again. You are the exceeding abundant God. So we rejoice for that which you are going to do tomorrow. When they said there was a casting down, you caused Gomer to say there is a lifting up, and we see that lifting up. Receive every bit of the glory, the praise, and the honor in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Philippians chapter 4, verses 8 to 9. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learnt or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you.
Heavenly Father, we honor you for teaching us not to despise the beginning of small things. We dedicate this gratitude initiative to you today. In our broken, inward-looking, divided society, help us to be mindful of the multitudes who put their lives on the line to keep us safe daily. Creating us hearts that will be filled with gratitude. Let this initiative spread like wildfire in our beloved nation, encouraging the numerous service providers that they are appreciated, from the cleaner on our streets to our nurses and doctors, our military on the high seas, on the land, and in the air, our politicians, our civil service, our firemen, our drivers, our mailmen and our milkmen. Make us a grateful nation. Our preachers who preach the message of reconciliation, our missionaries who sacrifice to spread the gospel. We thank you for your servant Gemma, and we dedicate this initiative to you. Amen.
Amen.
He that urges gratitude flees the cause both of God and men, for without it we can never be sociable nor religious.
So let's now commission Germa. If you want to stretch out a hand towards the screen, if you want to lift him up with using your body language just before God, let's ask God to fill him and equip him and give him everything that he's going to need. So let's pray for Germa. Father, thank you for Germa. Thank you, Lord, for raising him up for this time. We thank you for the task that you have set before him. Thank you for the passion that he has for it. And we ask, Lord God, that you would give him the ability to fulfill this task ahead. We pray that you would equip him with everything he will need for the journey. We pray that you would give him wisdom. Thank you that you give that without finding fault to those who ask. And we ask for that wisdom for him. We pray that you'd give him all the resources that he's going to need for this initiative. Give him people, give him money, give him tangible assets and things that are going to be useful, tools that will be helpful. And we ask most of all that you would fill him with your Holy Spirit, that you would anoint him for this task, that you would give him the God-given ability to do this in your strength. And we pray, Lord, that you would fill him with the love of God. Thank you that that love shines out from him. And we pray for even more love. Fill him and overflow from him. And we humbly ask for your favor to rest upon him. In the name of Jesus. Amen.
Wow, what a fantastic evening. This is brilliant, Goma. It's so great to be involved tonight. We are now officially live and launched. Really encourage you at home to subscribe to the social media channels to get the regular updates and to get involved in your community.
Thank you so much for being with us today, and let's encourage a gratitude culture in Britain and beyond together.
Good night and God bless.
United by your Spirit, Lord, one worship, one King.